Hey everyone, it's Elliott, and welcome back to the channel. So about a week ago, I dropped my pick into Doctor Strange's multiverse or something, and I realized it's been a while since I haven't played with a pick. For the record, I dropped it straight down and it ended up behind my desk. So this week, just for fun, I'm deciding to challenge myself and play without a pick the entire week. I want to go through some pros and cons that I've experienced throughout the years of ditching the pick. Also, if you like what you see here and get something from today's video, please comment, like, subscribe. Really helps the channel. I really appreciate it. And of course, if you'd like any supplementary material, there's links in the description to reach out for lessons or my Patreon. So the first for me is probably the most important, which is that it's sometimes easier to feel a bit more connected to what I'm playing. I don't know if that's because I did a lot of my technique stuff, starting out with a pick, or like the more repetitive, kind of not musical sounding, right? And so I can fall back into that, like muscle memory and everything can kind of go like, oh, you don't really know what to do in this part of the solo? Just do these repetitive patterns. I didn't do a lot of repeated patterns and a lot of technique work with just my hands. I don't really have a classical background or anything like that, so I can't do like the super fast, alternate picking with my fingers. It might also be a little psychological as well because my main influences for fingerpicking were people like Jeff Beck and Derek Trucks, who aren't really shredders. They're more melodic players. So maybe when I just put the pick down, I go, oh yeah, let me channel some of that vibe. Now, obviously, I could technically just do a bunch of hammer-ons and pull-offs and just do a bunch of repetitive stuff, right? But even there, I don't feel as comfortable doing it, and the technique isn't as fluid. That felt so much worse than with a pick. And also, I wouldn't necessarily do that. I've worked out some of those faster lines with no pick after realizing I was in some scenarios where I could really use a couple fast ideas and I just couldn't do them. Maybe because my hand was just too stiff or something. In any case, a lot of those fast lines lose so much aggression because I can't pick as hard and I don't have like a hard pick to use. I'm usually using the fleshy part of my finger. And that sounds quite a bit less aggressive than, right? It's just not going to hit the same, so why do it? So also, when using a pick, I think it's a bit more natural, at least for me, to have my hand resting against the strings, kind of always dampening. And there's not a lot of movement going on when I'm picking. It's like either my wrist or, forearm. It's just kind of a rotating motion. Maybe my whole hand, but not really often. Like if I want to skip strings, I guess. That's about it. I might play single note lines, kind of muting everything with like a straight thumb and that side of my hand and be playing with some fingers. Maybe the low note with a thumb. But if I'm going to be playing kind of like a banjo roll, then it's a little uncomfortable to do it while muting like that. So my hand will come up, which means my left hand needs to take control of the muting. So it's a bit more conscious, interplay between the two hands. So basically I have to remain a little bit more conscious of what I'm doing with both my hands and try to make sure that I'm not kind of bouncing against the strings, just like getting sweaty and then letting it go and having that kind of annoying kind of sound in the background. Also because I have to be more conscious, like I have a lot more to think about, therefore I'm going to slow down and possibly be a bit more melodic, a bit more thoughtful with my solo. Now, while I wouldn't say that it's more expressive to use your hand, I would say at least clean. I don't know about distorted, but clean, you do have a bit more range of tonal possibilities. Like the flesh of my thumb, for instance, is going to be such a thicker tone than, near my nail. Right? Those are just nail, finger, thumb. So finger, nail, finger, flesh, thumb, flesh. Right? That's a lot of different textures, even if I'm just kind of going. Right? The high notes are plucked with a thinner sounding finger. The low notes are plucked with the kind of fleshier side of the thumb. If I wanted, I could do everything with the fleshy side of my thumb and get a very, very round sound. With the pick, it's kind of like softer pick or harder attack pick, but it's still just, at least in my case, a 1.14 millimeter piece of stuff. The last pro to going without the pick would be not having to do any wild string skipping in case I wanted to skip strings. So like something like this. Pretty wide chord. Right? Very intuitive, very easy with finger picking. But with a pick, I'm trying to be accurate about all that. Already skipped something, already made a mistake. Way more effort to be accurate. And also you could see it's like there's a lot of this going on versus, right? Hand doesn't move, just fingers versus everything's going all over the place. It's really entertaining to see someone like Julian Lage do that. He often will go from like the low E to the high E just because or something. So when you see him solo, especially on acoustic, his wrist is going nuts. So now to the cons. So the number one con for me when not using a pick would be how much less power I have in my sound. Like a G chord strum with a pick, for instance. It's like, yeah, that's like right there. And also, of course, if I strum it hard, it's more, it has some aggression to it. I'm not even hitting that hard, and it has a good amount. Versus, especially if I hit with my thumb, or my nail. It's not the same. It's not the same kind of attack and volume as well, especially for single note lines. There, it's obviously much easier to go or the hand. Way less output, way less finesse also, because it's been a while, which is why I'm going to give it a lot of time this week. But it's not, I'd have to like really pluck the strings, which sounds like not so great. So I'm just going to end up with a quieter sound than I would with a pick. Granted, I could play really softly with a pick, but it's still going to be a bit brighter of an attack than if I didn't. And there are scenarios where you kind of get caught off guard and you're like, oh crap, I wish I just had a little bit more oomph to my sound. And you can get it, just put on an overdrive or something and you'll be fine, but having it in your hand is really nice. So number 2 would be less clarity in my low notes, which is why someone like Tommy Emmanuel uses a thumb pick. If I did something like pretty round bass, but if I used a pick, right, big loss in clarity, and if I want that clarity, I gotta use a thumb pick or play with like a hybrid style. Number 3, of course, is good luck if you want to shred. Maybe they can do it in classical music or with classical technique, but with the way I play, sweep picking, for instance, is just not a thing. That's my best shot. And then with a pick, like no brainer. But like maybe I don't sweep pick a lot, maybe something with a pick like, stuff like that. So much easier than like I just can't pick that fast. And I might not want to play just legato unless I have a bunch of distortion or something. So in general, a lot of shred techniques kind of go out the door with the pick. Granted, you still have some like bluesy availability. You don't need a pick to do that. But a lot of the more acrobatic stuff, yeah, picks really help. The next one comes from those scenarios where you're playing an outdoor gig and it's that time of season when it starts to get pretty cold at night, or you're just playing an outdoor winter gig, which like, whew. But when you're not warmed up and it's almost impossible to get warmed up, your hands are cold almost the entire time. What I would do in those scenarios often with a pick is not play a lot of notes with my left hand and instead just start doing, as a way to get a lot of notes for like a highly energetic part or something. Like this general motion, that can, be done even if I'm a bit cold. But getting my fingers going, it's like perfect way to get some kind of injury. And without that pick, I don't have that option to do the repeated note thing. So if my right hand's freezing and my left hand's freezing, then everything's just going to be very slow that day. Maybe something. And that would be like, oof, burning. So in scenarios of kind of whatever weather, or maybe an overactive air conditioner, I don't know, having a cold right hand when you play fingerstyle is another liability. Granted, if Tommy Emmanuel finds a way, I'm sure if you play primarily fingerstyle, you can find a way. Maybe just running the hot water in a sink and dunking your hands for a while, or I don't know. The last one's not really a con. It's kind of more like, hey, why don't you split the difference and try hybrid picking? So I was never like lightning fast at alternate or economy picking. And so for certain licks especially, hybrid picking was very attractive to me, especially with something string skipping wise, like. A lot of effort. Hybrid picking though? It just made more sense. It became more naturally. And I found, at least listening back in recordings, it also sounded a bit more interesting. There's like a variety of tones. Also, as far as rhythm playing, this is fine, but I kind of liked more of a. The ability to, instead of just strum, kind of also pluck everything at the same time. I like that difference in sound. Like, sure, or, kind of reminded me of the way a piano player would just go kong and not go bring, bring into every single chord necessarily. When piano players go kong, 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 kong. So I hope you'll join me and try this week with no pick. I know there's going to be certain times where it's really difficult because you can play a lick with a pick, but you have to find a way to make it work just fingerstyle. And that's the whole point. We're going to all get better as guitar players. We're going to get really creative with how we're going to make it work. And I think it'll be a lot of fun in the end. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all next week.